Her mother passed Leandro an evil egg. No, a devil egg. Something like that. It was hellish by any means. It looked and behaved like a normal egg, white on the outside, yellow in the middle. But the optimism of eating the only recognizable thing on the table was soon replaced by despair when he choked down the demon egg. The yolk wasn't runny the way it was supposed to be. Rather, it was the worst tart he had ever tasted. Still, he gave a big smile and a thumbs up, followed by an exaggerated, mmm. Miss Ellington, or Marilyn, as she insisted on being called, had wide, mousy eyes that awaited Leandro's response to the deviled egg. Upon his reaction, her rouge-dusted cheeks warped into a delighted smile as she proudly informed him that the egg was her mother's recipe. She must have been horrible. The thought of a grandmother conjured an image of a warty witch at a cauldron stirring eggs and eyeballs. The father barked something at him now. What did he say? Must respond. Yes, Leandro replied with an unsure smile. Shit, that was the wrong answer. The man's eyebrows questioned his daughter the same way they had when Leandro failed to recite the Lord's Prayer. It was as if they were saying, "Really? This is the boy you brought home?" Her father was a tall, thin man with broad shoulders. He exuded a sort of old-fashioned corporate masculinity that Leandro was not accustomed to. His own dad was a strong, but admittedly short Filipino man. The domineering man who sat at the head of the table now had a mean look about him. Luckily, they were separated by 3 people: Katie, his girlfriend, her mother, Marilyn, and Auntie Olivia. Then, all the way down on the other end was mean Mr. Ellington with his inspecting eyes. On the other side of the table were 3 more chairs, though only 2 were occupied by the most beastly children Leandro had ever seen. They were young boys who had only just begun to flirt with puberty. They had bored straight blonde hair, and even though school had been out for hours now, they remained in their academy uniforms. One was Katie's younger brother, Keith, and the other was her cousin, though he wasn't entirely sure which was which. Katie, he realized, had sat herself and Leandro strategically, as if she and the rest of her family were meant to be human shields between her beloved and the dormant cruelty that she knew existed in her father. "Daddy, could you chew your food first and then ask it again? I don't think Leandro understood you." They said it was cranberry pie. That's what Mr. Ellington was devouring presently. How odd that these people were eating pie before their main course. It occurred to Leandro that he had never tried a cranberry. It looked like blood dripping from Mr. Ellington's chin. "Who you got on the fight, Leandro? Floyd Mayweather or Pac-Man?" Manny Pacquiao, the only thing anyone ever knew about the Philippines. Despite never having watched a boxing match in his life, he had become accustomed to this line of questioning in the past few weeks. He regurgitated something he had heard his coworkers say about how Manny was impressive, but ultimately Floyd was the greatest defensive boxer of all time and would likely wear his opponent down after multiple rounds. Ding ding! "Oh, that's the venison. It's been cooking low and slow since this morning. I think you're really gonna like it." Miss Marilyn Ellington said all of this to Leandro directly as she scurried from her seat to the kitchen doors. Venison. Katie really should have warned him about these dishes. Mr. Ellington grumbled. "I never liked watching Floyd. Boring fights, if you ask me. He might have a good defense, but that's only 'cause he never fought someone like Tyson. That man could take you down with a single punch. No amount of defense can stop someone like that. He was efficient." A nod of agreement was all that he could think of to respond. Still, I would support the man from my own country, even if he wasn't the favorite, Mr. Ellington said. I was born in America, Mr. Ellington. The words slipped from Leandro's mouth before he had a chance to catch them. The eyes of one of the ratty boys darted to Mr. Ellington. The man did not accept the correction, he just grabbed another biscuit. Cornbread is what they called it. Dry is what it was. Auntie Olivia had explained that her sister had a tendency of making them too dry. Dip it in the grits, was her suggestion. But the thing she pointed at looked like a cursed potion, the type of concoction that may have transfigured a Filipino man into a white man. That smells real good, Mom, Katie said to break the silence and change the subject. She was trying her best. She had multiple people's interests to juggle, but it was still slightly frustrating that she hadn't warned him in advance about the food, and that she hadn't told her parents that he had to leave at 7. They were damn near pushing 6:30, and the venison had only just been pulled from the oven. What a poor impression it would make being late to his psychiatrist appointment. His new psychiatrist. Can't be late Leandro again. Lateness would perhaps even warrant a reschedule. No, gotta be there. Need a refill on those meds. It's gone on too long already. Not wanting to sit idle, he excused himself to the kitchen to give Miss Marilyn Ellington a hand with whatever a venison was. Over the oven, she was sawing something. He looked over her shoulder. Her hands were covered in blood. She cut into tough, red meat. Was venison human flesh? Miss Marilyn, I was wondering if you needed a hand with that, Leandro asked. Her drawn-on eyebrows looked even more surprised than usual. Dear heavens, no! You are our guest! She laughed a sort of strained laugh. You just sit right back down. It's almost ready. Don't you worry about a thing. She shooed him out of the kitchen. He left through another set of doors, hoping to find a bathroom. A little break from the dining room, small talk might do him good. In the living room, it hit him how truly grand the house was. High ceilings, ancient, expensive furniture, a twisting staircase, and over the mantel hung an antique clock, the cuckoo kind, dark wood, probably from Europe. It was ornately carved to look like a little cottage, and outside this cottage was a little wooden man and his little wooden boy. They looked happy. They stood statically, arm in arm, but at the top of the hour, they would undoubtedly spin around, mimicking a dance. That would be nice to see. Too bad. Fuck, it was already 6:45. Got to start hinting that he'd be leaving soon. He turned to go back into the dining room, but was stopped by the looming figure of mean Mr. Ellington. Are you all right, hun? You look a little unwell. God, it wasn't Mr. Ellington. It was Katie. For a moment, he saw in his partner a face he had never seen before. What he had once found very attractive in Katie, her strong jaw and thick eyebrows, had been completely recontextualized after meeting her father. I know my family can be a lot, she said. I swear it's going better than you think it is. They take a little while to warm up, but I can tell my mom really likes you. She offered him an empathetic smile and took his hands in hers. Baby, I still have to go at 7. You didn't mention that to your parents? He emphasized by squeezing her palms. The venison just finished. My mom's been roasting it all day, 7 or 8 hours at least. I didn't really want to tell them that I have a psychiatrist on the first dinner, he said. She looked down at her feet. Come back into the dining room. I'll come up with some excuse and we can leave together. You have to try the venison, though, or my mom will be so disappointed. Back in the dining room, still anticipation. The two boys were arguing over something that happened at school. They were ready for meat. Mr. Ellington looked thoroughly annoyed by their bickering. He was also ready for meat. In fact, he already had a handkerchief tucked into his collar like a bib and a death grip on a steak knife in one hand. The two adults were silently waiting. Had they ever had a conversation between the two of them? He and Katie reclaimed their seats. Okay, let's give this another try. Deep breath. Ask them about something they could all talk about. Excuse my incompetence, Leandro said. What exactly is venison? I've never had it before. Mr. Ellington spoke. It's Keith's first buck. Shot it in the spring. Mr. Ellington looked at his boy with something that resembled a smile. Neither boy looked back. He still didn't know which was Keith. Miss Marilyn Ellington came struggling through the doors with a heavy platter of meat. With her oven mitts on, she looked like Minnie Mouse. Bon appetit, she said, placing the tray in front of him. You dig in first. It was chopped up into little slices, bloody. He thought of the dead deer carcass and one of the ugly little blonde boys posing with it for a picture. He stared into the grain of the meat, zoning out. One of the boys couldn't wait, so he gouged the slab with his fork and tore a piece of the meat onto his plate. Blood oozed from the stab. Leandro caught a whiff of the animal. Cuckoo, ding, cuckoo, ding, cuckoo. Leandro vomited onto the platter of meat. For a moment, no one said anything. The clock just continued its jingle. He was shaky and pale as a wounded animal. Couldn't say a word. No fixing it now. He just looked around the table from shocked face to shocked face. Then one of the boys started giggling. Then the other. Soon they were cackling like little hyenas. They didn't notice Mr. Ellington lumber over to them until he struck one of them hard as he could across the jaw. The child collapsed to the floor. Mr. Ellington picked him back up by the collar. Leandro caught only a glimpse of the boy's face. There was a purple imprint of Mr. Ellington's class ring on his cheek. The man dragged the boy out of sight and into the other room. Now a tug on his own arm. Katie. She pulled him out of the room too, and out the front door. What had even happened? They were in the car now, driving. Katie was crying. He shook in the passenger seat. That one must have been Keith.